Hi, guys. Welcome to Real Food Recovery. We are on episode 68. And before I get into this fun topic, I want to say hi to my partner, Jamie. How's it going?
Good, good, good. This topic is a very, very interesting topic, and I think it's something that people are certainly in our community are curious about, and I think in the recovery world are very curious about. So I'm excited to dive in.
Agree. Today we are going to be talking about inner family work that works. So, again, so excited today. I love this topic of inner family work. In fact, I really wasn't that aware of inner family work until this past couple years in partnering with Jamie. I've had the luxury of working with someone who is a student of the game and is not afraid to connect with, learn from, and reparent her inner family. Jamie makes all this very easy to understand and to integrate into our recovery. She is a pro at identifying which parts of us are running the show and how to take action from there. For those who are new to this inner family work, like me, this introduces the idea that we are all made up of parts ranging from the inner child to the loving adult.
Yes. Yeah. And what makes this so interesting and complex is the fact that sometimes these parts are on the same team, and
Mhm.
sometimes they are in conflict with one another. So this often can result in a lot of inner conflict. Uh, Decision making becomes difficult. There's a lot of shaming and blaming, internal shaming and blaming,
Mhm.
a lot of self-judgment, and even some self-condemnation. So it's a very, very big topic. I think for me, it answered a lot of questions in recovery once I understood how the inner family dynamics were playing into my inner world and my thought life and my recovery. So inner family work is, to me, I think I don't want to call it the last frontier, but it's certainly a critical frontier in recovery, and I think it's a level that a lot of folks um, get to after they pass this, removal of the substances, um, tackling their addiction head on, looking at other areas of life that they need to shore up, right, in their wheel of life. And then they get to maybe looking at their relationships, and then they'll kind of dig a little deeper and go into their childhood. And this is the next level of, okay, I understand that I've had some past hurts in my life, and I've had some parents that or a parent that did the best they could with what they had, but I came out with a lot of wounds that need healing, and there's no way for us to go back and get those wounds healed from our parents or our family of origin. They're just, even if good conversations and loving conversations are had, it still is very difficult. So that creates this need for reparenting to happen. Reparenting happens from the place of ourselves in recovery. And I don't want to call it an advanced recovery skill, but it's definitely something that folks in the very, very first few years of recovery often are not ready to tackle. They can see things emerging, they can see their inner family parts and players emerging, but they don't necessarily know what's happening and why. Um, so I like to make it more simple and user friendly. There are many wonderful methodologies out there, including internal family systems, founded by Richard Schwartz. Um, and he and his team of psychologists and doctors have come up with an amazing tool that therapists and counselors can get certified in. These are professionals being certified in a deeper professional certification around internal family systems. And so this is something that I love, that, as a resource for many. It's a wonderful resource for professionals to offer to their clients. But there's a lot of work in the inner family world that can be done by non-professionals. Um, just giving yourself an understanding of what's happening in your internal world, and giving yourself some tools, educating yourself on some tools to make healing possible, so that you can say, okay, I do want to go a little deeper here, or and get a professional and dive a little deeper into this, or I've gotten an understanding, and now I want to go ahead and play with it a little bit.
You said something in there about reparenting. Is that the main objective, is to reparent ourselves?
Uh, if there was an, I don't want to say an end point because there really is never an end point, but if there's an overarching goal, that would probably be it. You can call it, so you'll hear some people talk about interfamily and reparenting. They'll use those, they'll use those terms often with each other. But I think the ultimate goal is to start to learn how to identify the inner family members, how to talk to them, how to work with them, how to earn their trust, how to get on their team and get
Yeah,
them on yours. And the pathway, the tool to do that is reparenting.
I love that. And this is relatively new, right? In terms of therapy work, isn't it somewhat
It
new?
is in the last 20, 25 years.
Yeah.
So
Is that
yeah,
considered
yeah,
new? So
in
it's
the world of
fascinating.
therapy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's cutting edge stuff. I mean, that's very, very exciting. So, what really caught my attention with this in your family work is when I learned about firefighters or protectors. I refer to that as my addiction. It was a new concept for me in recovery to think of the addiction as merely a part of me that was trying to keep me safe and avoid any level of discomfort by blocking these negative emotions in any way it could. Unfortunately, the addiction or the firefighter works in kind of a backward way because it's always sending us to the food or insert food as whatever your drug of choice is. It sends you to that drug of choice as an easiest source of immediate comfort. That's its job,
Yes.
is making sure that you're comfortable at all times, regardless. But the big aha for me when I made that discovery is that the addiction doesn't understand consequences. It only goes so far. It only takes you to the cliff. It's not around when you dive over the edge. But
Exactly.
because it's not its job. The addiction has one job, and that's to make sure you're comfortable. It's not responsible for consequences. So the addiction really isn't a bad guy. It really is looking out for you. It just isn't capable. It's not engineered that deeply to understand what happens on the other side. And so, like I said, its only job is to react automatically to block emotional distress. A game changer was when I learned that you can talk to this part. That was like mind blowing. I never even thought of that. You can talk to this part. You can thank it for what it's done to keep you safe over these years, because these tools that we have, they didn't just pop up out of nowhere. We've been using them subconsciously, perhaps
Mhm.
from our earliest memory. It just kind of evolved. But you can tell the addiction, hey, I've got this new way of working through this upheaval. You can relax for now, and you can assure the addiction that you're going to take it from here and that you're trying out this new strategy. So when we talk to the addiction in this loving, thankful way, it allows it to relax and pull out of this trauma drive that it's in. And then we can activate these tools of recovery by asking ourselves or our parts, what do you need in these times of stress? I remember so vividly after one of my first nursing clinicals, I was a nervous wreck. I was stressed out. Bad day, real bad day. It was one of my very first nursing clinicals, and I literally could not get to that jumbo chocolate chip cookie in the Wichita State Student Campus Center fast enough. I knew where those were. They were just waiting for me and had my name on them. But when I took my first bite, it was like inhaling comfort like a drug into my veins. But at that time, I didn't know any other way to comfort myself. I had no clue about parts, or honestly, this is embarrassing, but I didn't even know it was an option for me to comfort myself. I mean, I just thought,
Yeah.
I who would do that? You just wait for the universe to comfort you, right? I didn't know it was in my
Something outside of
control.
us, right? Is what we
Yeah,
think. Something outside of ourselves will make us feel better.
yeah, yeah,
Something will change, someone will call, something will come
yeah.
to us.
Who's coming to save me? Well, nobody other than that cookie. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that and what your experiences has been with making friends with the critical and protective parts of yourself? I know you've got some thoughts around that.
Yes. So, I mean, um, there was always, in the height of my addiction, there was always a part that would just be, berating me and really condemning me. And I really never understood eating was used to quiet that part.
Right.
So it's like an example where you hear about in the internal family systems world or the inner family world, you'll hear people talk about protectors and you'll hear people talk about critics. And in the internal family systems, they'll talk about the protectors being firefighters because they're literally just doing everything they can to save a life.
Yeah.
They're just trying to put out the fire, you
Mhm.
know, to numb the pain. They
Mhm.
are literally, that's all they're there to do. Like they don't think about the after effects of it. They just want to get the numb the pain.
Mhm.
And that's another, in the interfamily world, I like to think of them as protectors, right? They are. They're saving
Mhm.
a life, so to speak. But they don't look at, okay, after this fire is put out, there's going to be an empty shell of a building that is burned down with ashes and water everywhere. And now what? Right now, what do you do? Now you have to pick up the pieces and go on with life. Well, how do you do that?
Mhm.
So firefighters aren't thinking that way. They're just putting out the fire. So
Mhm.
when I was able to understand the whole idea of protectors like firefighters and inner critics, and how the inner critics sort of create the situation where you're wanting to numb, right, from the pain, um, I understood that we have, not only am I creating my inner hell, I also have the ability to heal it. And it's really in the whole, in connecting with them, those parts of me that are causing all of this drama. And it's getting to know them and earning their trust and connecting with them
Mhm.
in a way that helps them feel seen, heard, and understood, so that I can get them on my side. Me being in my loving adult self, and the loving adult self is a representation of our true being, our true selves, the core essence of us. And those core words, there's eight terms that describe our true core selves. And these eight terms come from the internal family systems world, but they can, by the way, they have come from Christian traditions, they have come from Jewish traditions, they have come from Buddhist traditions and Hindu traditions. So any of these spiritual practices have identified these eight words. This is not just an internal family systems identification. This is spiritual practice for thousands of years. What is it? The essence of the true self, or some might say the God self within us. And those eight words are compassion, curiosity, clarity, creativity, calm, confidence, courage, and connection. So when we align with our true selves, we can be more fully present in practicing these eight traits. And this is the whole game changer, that when we're seeing and recognizing a protector part, a critical part, an inner child, an inner teen, when we see these parts running roughshod over our lives, we're able to stop and say, okay, there's an opportunity here. I'm seeing what's happening. And there's an opportunity here for me to kind of observe and then look at ways to get to a calm place to be able to access these other parts. Uh,
Mhm.
and there's tricks to it, because you could you could be aiming to be in a calm, creative, connected place, but it could be a controlling part of you trying to do that.
Ah.
So there are, you know what I'm saying? There are little pitfalls in the inner family world that need to be minded. Um, and that's why inner family work goes really well with other recovery practices.
Mhm.
Goes really well with any kind of emotional work, any kind of family of origin work. It goes really well with any kind of emotional awareness work, any kind of counseling that you'll do, and of course, being clean from the food. You really want to have a clean place to come from when you're interacting with these parts.
Yeah. I know, because it made me think when you were saying that about the firefighter comes in and douses out your emotional pain with a fire hose of chocolate chip cookies. But you know how fires they jump? It's like you
Yeah,
dampen that one and then it would
yes.
o- obviously ignite another part.
Mhm.
So, I mean,
Good.
you're just putting out fires all over the place.
You're not really finding, often firefighters aren't worried about finding the source of the fire. They just want to put out the flames.
Yeah. No questions asked.
Mhm.
Yeah. Interesting. Oh, I love this so much. I'm just so glad that we're talking about this today. So, in RFR, our approach to recovery, we have got these four main branches that we focus on, including food or food prep, sleep, movement, and spirituality. RFR believes that when you have those four cornerstones in place, we have greater access to all parts as well, and that we are operating from a position of clarity and able to make the next right move. Do you want to add on to that, Jamie, how all that ties in together?
Yeah, I think that again, it's the whole idea of coming from a place of one of those foundational elements of that core true self. So whether it's clarity, whether it's calm, whether it's confidence, it's having the presence of mind to stop and to look at where we are and where we need to be. Does that help clarify it?
Hmm.
It's knowing the next right move to make. It's
Yeah.
being in a place of making the next right move and knowing intuitively what that is and where it needs to go.
It opens up self-trust, doesn't it?
It does.
Ding, ding,
And
ding, ding.
and self-awareness. It really, having self-awareness enough to say, hey, I need some attention here, and my true self somewhere, somehow, there's an opportunity for it to step in here and to make a connection with a part that's in pain or acting up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we think about taking a deeper look at our thoughts, or excuse me, our parts, it's starting with the key players. So I mentioned them before, but let's go through them again. We
Yeah.
have the inner child, we have the inner teen or rebellious teen. You might hear that phrase. You have a critical parent. Um, and by the way, these three inner child, rebellious teen, critical parent, these three parts can have multiple representations depending on age. So you might have an inner child who's 3 years old, who's 8 years old, who's 11 years old.
Oh,
Because especially if there's a lot of trauma in your background, you might have a part or parts that get sort of emotionally stunted at different ages, and they'll show up. So I know for me, I have a rebellious teen. I've got a couple of them at two different ages, and I've got a couple of different inner children that show up at a
you
3
got
year
a whole crew to feed.
too. I sure do. And then you've got a critical parent, and those critical parent voices can sound like caregivers, direct, family of origin caregivers, mothers,
Right.
fathers, grandparents, aunts, uncles. It could also be an amalgamation of voices and of parental figures you've had over your life, parental figures from aspects of your life and observations and your experiences. Um, but it could be a teacher you had, a coach you had. It will be the sort of voice of, and sometimes I'll hear many people I work with, like say, I hear the voice of my mom, it's one type of critic. I hear the voice of this teacher I had that, used to ride me for no reason about homework, and it's another type of critic. So you could have a couple different critical parents voices. Okay, so those are the three sort of subsets there. Then you've got your protectors or firefighters. Again, protectors, the same kind of thing. Their whole goal is to get rid of pain, however they can, or keep you from feeling it.
Hmm.
Right. So that's Pages and my whole goal, and why we want to say it's so important to not hate on our addictions, to not give them the names and make fun of them and dismiss them and act like they're horrible things, because they're really truly trying to protect us.
Yeah.
They've just gotten way off track. And then you've got the final part of the family system, which is the loving parent. And that is that ultimate sort of healed or healing part of ourselves, that we're able to as we heal and are able to connect with more and more. It's that true nature of our humanity and maybe even our spirituality before all of the stuff of life is piled on top of it. It's
That's,
who we really are.
yeah. That makes up the 8 C's.
Yes, is
The
made
eight,
up of. Yes.
the 8 C's is the loving
Mhm.
parent.
Yes.
Oh, I love this conversation so much. So, I mean, the next question becomes, what's the key to getting all these parts to work together? And how do you even know who's running the show? Because you need to make sure that the message is coming from the right place and not a misleading place.
Yeah.
So that may be a refinement process. So yeah, how do we get all these guys to play nice in the sandbox?
This is where self-awareness comes in. So, again, this is something that is honed because when you're first, at least in my experience, when you're first coming out of the food, first coming off of the addictive substance that you used for years, maybe, you really don't know who you are or how you show up in life without the substance. So it's a very important thing for us to stop and say, okay, I need to, um, I need to take a step back here and become aware of what I'm saying, what I'm doing, who I'm being, and you'll notice that because we're human and we make mistakes, we'll notice that we'll see patterns of behavior.
Oh,
Start to look at the patterns of behavior and the way we talk to people, the way we talk about people or situations, and we'll start to see those parts showing up. If I'm very sarcastic to someone in my life, that's my inner teen. If I'm being fearful or insecure, that could be my inner child. And again, when you start to notice it, you'll think to yourself, is this really, like, am I saying this? Am I really thinking this? Like, this doesn't feel like normal me. Like, this is not me. But it really is, it's when you feel like this, head scratching kind of thing happening, like, what's going on? Why am I saying that? That's not me. Probably because one of your parts has hijacked you or your behavior for a minute. And
mhm.
that's how to tell when it's who is running the show. You can hear it. I mean, I can hear it in me. I can hear it when I say things to people. And if I'm sarcastic, I'm like, all right, it's my 13-year-old running the show. Like, I gotta take a second here. Or if I'm really rebellious, it's my 17-year-old running it. And
Interesting.
again, and then sometimes when I'm feeling my abandonment triggers or not or feeling very emotional about something that my rational brain knows isn't true, it's an inner child running the show. And then everything else in between, the negative self-talk, the body shaming, all of the recovery voices that I've worked in my recovery to try to heal, right, with my recovery tools. All of not really recovery, those addiction voices, they're usually a critical parent, um, that will lead me into the critical parent will sort of trigger the need for that protector or firefighter to come in and try to intervene.
That's
And
so fascinating.
that's could be in the form of a chocolate chip cookie, or in my case, donuts or pizzas or whatever it was, some
Yeah.
kind of food to feel better.
Yeah. As adults, every single move we make, there's a payoff in it.
Mhm.
So that being said, what do you think is the biggest benefit to doing this inner family work? Otherwise, people wouldn't be doing it. So what, in your opinion, is the biggest benefit to inner family work?
Beyond the self-awareness benefit, it's really the opportunity to go, because while we went deeply want to go back and get the healing from our parents or the parenting from our parents we didn't get, a lot of times even to have the conversations, if they're still here, to have the conversations with them, the conversations wouldn't get us anywhere because
Right.
they're not able, not, they might really want to, and some parents have done the work, some parents have gone back and done the work, done the healing, made the amends to their children and are open to having these conversations. But I would say 99.5% of them have not and never will. And some would say that that's not their job. And I would be inclined to agree, because they did the best they could with what they had at the time. And now it's our job to go in and reparent ourselves, to go in and, that is the biggest benefit, is giving ourselves the parenting that we never had.
One of the things that I love so much, oh gosh, I just love all this so much. But when we talk about wanting to go back and have those conversations with our parents, but we're never really going to probably get the outcomes we want, is the reframing of, I love what you said about they probably did do the best they could, and having compassion
Mhm.
for them in those circumstances.
Yes.
And, for anybody that's been a parent, I mean, it's a mind-boggling job with
Yeah,
no
I can't.
thanks.
Exactly. Yeah, I can't imagine what that would be like. So I would imagine that given all the priorities that parents are juggling, they are doing the best they can. And
Yeah.
and they're tired and they're not thinking about how they're talking all the time to their children, but these hurts are happening all the time to kids, and it's not because they're bad parents or they're parents that are like, I'm gonna screw up my kid today when they get out
Yeah.
of bed. That's the first. Nobody. That's the opposite of what they're thinking. That's why I really believe that this whole inner family work should be taught in schools. Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't ever use geometry. I don't care. I couldn't tell you what pi is. I could, but I was tested on it 14 times when I was in school.
The Pythagorean theorem.
Yeah, like what? Who uses that? So, I mean, again, engineers, I suppose, use it, but again, how valuable would inner family work be to children who are growing up and acting out in all kinds of
Right.
ways,
Yeah.
if they were taught this work?
I mean, that begs the question that do you think understanding that we're made up of parts and learning how to work with them is necessary, actually?
Oh, yeah,
Can you recover without it,
I
actually?
don't. So I've seen a lot. I've been in the rooms of recovery for a long time now, and I've seen in all the different rooms of recovery because I spent a lot of time in AA, even though that's not my um addiction,
Well,
and
what made you
not
go to AA?
not my fellowship, as they say, because I felt an identity with the way they struggled with alcohol was the
I
way
see.
I struggled with food.
I
And I
see.
felt a kinship to them. I still do,
Mhm.
a
Makes
kinship to
sense.
them that I couldn't explain.
Mhm.
But it was because they show up with food the way I showed alcohol the way I showed up with food.
Right, got
And
it.
the words, the behaviors, the mindsets, the thought patterns identical to how I was with food and how I could still be, by the way. Right?
Mhm.
I really do subscribe to that whole idea of I'm always working on my recovery.
Mhm.
I don't know that it's ever a past tense.
Mhm.
And the minute that I think it is, it's probably it could be that I'm developing some a little too much bravado, and I need to rein myself in, right? Because that can be if we take our foot off the gas and stop doing the things that we did to stay recovered or get recovered,
Oh, yeah.
we can
I
take
don't ever that's not my goal. It's
right.
never been my goal to reach the finish line. In fact, I don't even wanna see it in my vision anywhere.
So I agree. And so because I spent a lot of time with AAers, I mean, wonderful old timers, right? Old timer drunks, as they call themselves, amazing human beings, really, that work on themselves for 30, 40 years,
Yeah.
and they help thousands of others, right? Through their sponsorship and the people that they sponsor, sponsoring others. I mean, beautiful. And I have seen them cower when you talk about anything to do with inner work.
Oh,
They,
really? I
yeah,
thought you were
not
gonna
all
go in a different direction.
cower.
Fearful?
So,
Afraid it's gonna hurt? Doesn't
or
wanna
I'll
look inside?
see, yeah, or I'll see a lot of transfer of addiction, right? Of transfer of addiction from drugs or alcohol over to
Mhm. So
sex, shopping, gambling,
so
which
that's
I get.
which is, I guess, your answer to why you think it's necessary to look at
Yes,
these inner parts to fully recover, because you don't wanna just recover from one thing and transfer it to something else.
exactly. Because it gives you um, the tools to be able to say to someone, to yourself, right? Hey, I hear you. I know what you're asking for, and this is why we're going to not do this. We're going to go in this direction instead. And we give each other, we give ourselves the tools that we need in a different, deeper way. So again, I've seen the folks that I've seen who've done this interfamily work or are doing it, integrate it into their recovery work. It's a whole different level of healing that happens.
Yeah, so that kind of, I was going to ask you, what happens when we don't recognize when our inner child is running the show? And I'm using that because I almost think the inner child maybe is the most dangerous, or maybe you
Not
disagree with
necessarily. No.
rebellious teen, maybe. So I'm asking you two different things, but what I guess we'll start with what happens when we don't recognize that. Well, let's call it either one. The inner child
Yeah.
or the rebellious teen is running the show. What play that out 10 steps down the
Yeah.
road.
It could be anything. If you notice, I'm emotionally stunted and it's showing up as emotional stunting consistently.
Hmm.
Um, I would that's it's like, hey, I sound like an 8-year-old right now, or I'm talking to my spouse, partner, coworker like an angry teenager right now. Like, what is going on? That's when those parts are running the show, and I'm sure have had parts of my life where my parts were running the show. I know they did, and I know that because my life during those years was a mess.
Yeah.
It was like an 8-year-old was trying to be an adult, or a 13-year-old was trying to be an adult, or it was a 13-year-old trapped in an adult's body.
Hmm.
And I don't think there's any accident in the whole adult child movement, right? This whole thought process and exploration part of recovery of the adult child, adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families. I've been part of the fellowship. It's a wonderful tool to augment recovery. But they call themselves adult children because that really is very accurate from their perspective. They feel like adult children walking around in adult bodies with no adult skills.
That's got to be so painful and terrifying. You would have to be just like riddled with fear at all the time and questioning every movement. And oh my gosh.
It's a lot. So, and I think that um, there's a lot of people who have never touched formal recovery that have these characteristics and traits they just don't see it. They don't see it, and that's their journey if they'll ever see that for themselves or not.
Yeah.
But I'm shocked, like when I look at who's running our country, who's running major corporations. I mean, you see a lot of childish behavior, and you might hear labels like narcissist or codependent or others thrown around, and I think that those all can be boiled down to some part of them running their lives or running their company.
Yeah. I mean, that makes total sense when you think about that. And especially going back to what I said about until I met you, I really wasn't even that familiar with it. So it's part of it. I wonder if they just haven't even aren't aware.
Mhm.
If on some level they don't even understand this is an option. I know I didn't, and it just was from lack of exposure. But now I'm like, oh man, this is just fascinating.
Crazy, isn't
So you
it?
you, you don't really think there's any one part that's more harmful, whether it's the inner child or the rebellious teen or the critical parent. Is there one that's more harmful to our psyche, could do more damage?
Um, no, I don't think there's one over another that could do more damage. I mean, some might say that firefighters, protectors do a lot of damage, right? Because they're trying to protect by distracting from the pain. I don't know that there's any part that's worse than another. In my experience, it's been um, all of all of my parts at different times create havoc in different ways.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great answer. That it just depends on how they manifest themselves at what time and in
How
what
long?
circumstances.
Yes, and how long you let them run roughshod.
Yeah.
over life, which some people literally live their entire lives with a part running their life for them.
I mean, it's terrifying, right? And now I'm like, oh gosh, I got to do a little self-check here to see what's going on to make sure, do I need to, what do I need to start working on? Which, brings us to the next thought of, is this a quick fix, and does this take a long time to get all these parts in sync and working together? Is this an overwhelming job, or is this something, after listening to our podcast, people can go, okay, I've got it done now.
That is what some might call a psychological or spiritual bypass. No, I really think it's a lifelong journey. I really think it's a lifelong journey that starts as soon as we wake up to it and just
Yeah.
goes on the rest of our lives. I really believe that it is the rest of our lives, and it's like movement, like meditation, the meditation practice, a food practice, anything in recovery, they're all practices.
Right.
We have to just put the time in and the effort in when we get the opportunities to do so, or when we're forced to do so. We have to take the time to put the work in, and slowly over time we'll see healing. And when we take our time and put it elsewhere, we'll see regression.
Yeah. I think it's to our benefit, right? That it's a lifelong journey. I love that you put it that way. That's
Yep.
our best friend, that we
It's
will work on that forever.
exactly. It's a whole process of discovery, uncovering, partnering, and learning how to build trust with those parts, and then
Mhm.
reparenting them.
Yeah. I have heard it said that we are always all the ages that we have ever been. Do you think that's kind of a good way to sum up that inner family work, that we are just trying to work with all these life experiences that we've had and comfort them in healthy, positive ways? Because I mean, if we're always all the ages that we've ever been, we've got a lot of stuff to deal with and put together in a comfortable way.
That summarizes it very well, for sure.
Do you think that acknowledging and accepting our parts without judgment and approaching with kindness and a genuine desire to make them feel heard, understood, and seen is the key to allowing them to feel safe and then relax and not act out? Because we want to get to the root of what makes a part not act out and go, okay, I'm good now. I can just behave comfortably.
Over time, I mean, it really is. You have trust has to be earned with the parts as much as you have to earn it with the human. And when trust is broken, it has to be rebuilt. I mean, it really is. It is a relationship like any other relationship, but it's just with internal parts and pieces of it, of us.
Yeah.
It's
You
crazy.
have done a lot of work with people, helping, counseling, coaching with this inner family work, and you do a fabulous job when you do these one-on-one sessions. Do you think that it always requires coaching, or do you think that do you think there are some things that you can do on your own to practice for yourself, or is it better to stick with someone to guide you and counsel you?
I think that it is, again, I think that you can dive into some of this on your own. But there are really, really gifted therapists, counselors, coaches that practice this work, that people can maybe start to uncover things and peel the onion back a little bit for themselves,
Mhm.
and start to pull out areas that they're seeing or they want to work on. But truly, I think for folks to make any kind of progress, they should probably work with someone who has certification in internal family systems or has a focus on inner family work. John Bradshaw is another founding father of this movement.
Oh.
Many I'm not mentioning, but those are the big two: Richard
Mhm.
Schwartz, and John Bradshaw. And again, it's the whole idea that we can start the process for ourselves.
Mm.
We really thrive and grow when we work with a guide who can bring it out in us.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You have been so wonderful and cooperative to answer all of this for me. I've been fascinated, but I do have one more question to ask you about. And that is just a simple question of, how do you find your part? How do you connect with a certain part? How do you make certain those parts' needs are being met?
Yeah. I mean, these are good questions. These are common questions. In my experience, the parts make themselves known. I mean, it really is those times when you say something to someone and you're like, what was I thinking? What was going on? It will they will make themselves known in heated moments, in the middle of or before arguments. You'll hear them in when you're hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or stressed. Those parts will come out. Again, you could connect it to the brain science, right? You could connect it to the blood flow leaving the frontal lobe and blah blah blah. But I think it's a little deeper than that. It's very rudimentary explanation for it physiologically. I think it's much deeper than that emotionally and psychologically. Um, because there are triggers that are wired into our brains that are not wired into anyone else's. We know that the gray matter developed differently depending on how you grew up, where you grew up, when you grew up. That you will have different reactions to situations that other people might not have. So
Mhm,
that's when a part can show up.
mhm,
It's really about being self-aware, and for me, when my parts show up, it is always when I'm one of those things: hungry, angry, lonely, tired, or stressed.
mhm.
And I will recognize it, and immediately either because of one of those areas, and I didn't um, take care of myself in a way that helped, or if I said or let that part run the show for a moment or for a day, I usually have to go back and clean up some kind of mess.
Yeah,
So, and there's usually an amends or an apology that's part of it. So again, and that's my side of the street, and I can see this all the time. I can see it all the time in others. But it's not my responsibility to point it out. It's not my responsibility to clean up their mess for them or to hope that they'll see it or any of it. I have to just keep getting better at my stuff.
yeah. That makes a lot of sense. I cannot thank you enough for the explanation on all this, and I feel like I understand it even better now. I had a simple understanding, but just I've really, really loved this discussion, and it's interesting to think about that things that we don't fear what we don't understand and know. So, and don't you find that once you are willing to stop and take a look at what's bothering you, it's never quite as scary as you thought it would be? Like you were talking about those old guys in AA that, I mean, they aren't willing to look at it at all. But really, if you do, it's not as bad as you think. It's just like doing your term paper. It's usually not as bad as you think it is. It's usually manageable, and you have expended more energy trying to run from something than it actually takes just to deal with it. I remember during our personal values workshop, you said, follow the discomfort. It's a dashboard light. Pay attention because it takes you to the core of your inner conflict. And at the core is a misalignment of values, which are so beautiful. So if we value the inner peace, the calm and serenity, then we've got to be willing to look inside at what is poking you.
Yeah.
Agree with
Yes.
that?
100%. And when you're doing that, it's the whole idea of discerning who those parts are, what they need, how to earn their trust. I mean, it takes time it's a relationship built like any other relationship.
And I love what we brought up about you can just ask them. You
Mhm.
can just say, "What do you need right now? I'm here, I'm listening. What do you need?"
Right.
And
Or
that was
tell me who you are. Tell me who you are. Tell me, I mean, I get very granular with my parts. I can tell you exactly what they're wearing, how they act, what their mannerisms are. Yeah, it's fascinating.
beautiful.
Can go deep. Yeah, I couldn't agree with more um of of that. And again, I've seen some really beautiful helping people in this recovery world. They're trying so hard to help others, and they're really amazing souls, but there's a lot of unhealed things inside for them. And you could see how it's a missing piece.
Yeah,
And once you uncover that, once you go deep and start doing the work, there's always something new to uncover.
yeah. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for your knowledge in this area. That you have been
Yeah,
great. This has been wonderful.
sure.
We've got a
We
few listener questions. You want to
do.
take those?
Yes. Is the main goal of interfamily work, the first question asks, is the main goal of interfamily work to get all your parts talking to one another and agreeing on the best way to manage life?
Mm.
Uh, I would say a little bit of yes, but mostly no. We don't want our parts agreeing how to manage life because if you have a 13-year-old and an 8-year-old and a hateful adult running a life, it's probably going to be pretty messy. So no, we don't want our parts to come and agree together. We all our goal is in reparenting and interfamily work is to get them to these parts to feel seen and heard and understood. But it doesn't mean none of that means that they're running the show. It just means that we're taking the time to hear and see and understand them.
You want the loving adult to be in charge. Yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense. Okay, so the next one is I do not like conflict. I have always hated it and will walk a mile around it if possible, sometimes to my detriment. Does that have anything to do with my volatile upbringing as a child? My parents used to fight a lot. So that could very well, there could very well be a connection to that fear of conflict and feelings of not being safe when your parents were at odds. What we know is that when you don't speak up for yourself, it breeds resentment. And in the end, that could erupt in a very negative way. And the conflict you were trying to avoid in the first place is exactly where your avoidance will land you in the end. Irony at its best, folks. So while we humans don't enjoy confrontation, there are times that we have to tell that inner child that we are going to have a talk with someone, but there's nothing to fear, and we promise to keep them safe and in that discussion that we are getting ready to have.
Yes, yes, yes. I love that. That's a great question too. Third viewer question. I am sure you will blame this on some part of us, but I really struggle with going to the grocery store. I hate doing it. It's a pain. I don't want to be around the queuing and I hate coming home and putting it all away. Isn't that just normal? So again, uh, it is very common. Normal is I think, a word that is tough to use here. I think it's very common. I know I've had my moments with it for sure.
Yeah.
Feelings. That is also a indicator to me that my 8-year-old is running the show, throwing a fit because she doesn't want
Hmm.
to go and do the work of
Hmm.
what you need to do. So that's an opportunity, right? When you hear that part of you, again, your part might be a 12-year-old or it might be a 20-year-old. There really might, if this hatred of the grocery store has happened for you for a long time, it might show up in lots of different ways in inner work. um, these inner parts might show themselves to you in lots of different phases of your life. So it's important to acknowledge what's happening and to stop and say, okay, this really isn't the adult me that's saying this, because I know the adult in me, the loving parent in me knows the benefits of the grocery store and of food prepping and planning and going and dealing with the queuing at the store. There's there are benefits to the cost, and it's that cost benefit analysis and that discernment that a loving parent brings to the table. And if I were in your shoes, I might even talk to that part and say, sweetheart, I know you don't want to go. I know you
Yeah.
don't. I know it's too much some days. So how about, why is it too much? What about this is really cueing to you? And it could be something as simple as, that part has something more to say, but it could be that part's telling you, you drive me to the grocery store at 5 o'clock on a Friday after a long week at work and I'm hungry. Okay, well, those are two things that can be fixed
Hmm.
easily, right? Timing and making sure you eat
Hmm.
before you go to the store. Or it could be that you hear a teen or a critical parent saying, there's no list. So you expect me to go in and know what to buy? I don't know what I'm buying. There's an opportunity for a list. right?
Mhm.
So it's having a conversation with those parts. And again, I try to have a conversation with those parts when I know it's my critical parent or inner teen or inner child. I really imagine a teenager in front of me or a child in front of me when I'm talking to them.
Mm,
I really try to use that same voice and that same, if it's body language, or I'll imagine it in my head having a conversation, how I would stand or how they would stand. So yeah, and it works every time.
beautiful.
It works
Oh,
every
this
time.
has been great. I've loved this so much. And if you want to know more about us, or if you want to contact Jamie for any coaching in this area, you can find us at realfoodrecoveryforyou.com. That's the number 4, the letter U, and we hope to see you there. Thanks again. See you next time, guys. Bye-bye.
Take care.